And here is breaking news from Montana. Here is the President of the United States tonight doing something you have never seen a President of the United States do, defending his mental health.
One after another. Donald Trump, he's lost it up here. You know, it's pretty tough. I stand up here giving speeches for an hour and a half, many times without notes. And then they say, he's lost it. And yet we have 25,000 people showing up to speeches.
The president, who denies he's lost it, is also reportedly volcanic in his anger tonight. He is becoming increasingly paranoid also, if that is possible. And this is not just because of the anonymously sourced New York Times op-ed or the release of quotes from Bob Woodward's new book that portray the president as unfit to serve and as having lost it. According to Axios, for some time last year, Trump even carried with him a handwritten list of people suspected to be leakers undermining his agenda. He would basically be like, we've got to get rid of them. The snakes are everywhere, but we're getting rid of them, said a source close to Trump. Mental health professionals have sounded the alarm about Donald Trump's instability and paranoia. Brandy Lee, the Yale University psychiatrist who edited a book about Donald Trump's mental state last year, told Salon, 2 White House officials actually contacted me in late October stating that Trump was scaring them, that he was unraveling. While the president conducts his own hunt for the author of the New York Times op-ed, one White House official told Politico if the goal was to moderate Trump's behavior, it will do the opposite. Here is former CIA Director John Brennan on Donald Trump's state of mind.
I think you see just a continual sort of increase in the concern, the extraordinary measures that people are taking. I do think things will get worse before they get better. I don't know how Donald Trump is going to react to this. A wounded lion is a very dangerous animal, and I think Donald Trump is wounded.
Joining our discussion now, David Frum, a senior editor for The Atlantic and the author of Trumpocracy, The Corruption of the American Republic, and Tim O'Brien is back with us. And so, David Frum, there's the President of the United States. He goes out to try to help a Montana Senate candidate, spends his time talking about the New York Times and his own mental health.
Right. It's a weird rally, and weirder than even than the usual rallies. In the rally, he had kind words for Greg Gianforte, the congressman who body slammed Ben Jacobs, then with The Guardian. And Trump praised, or seemed to praise, the use of violence against a journalist. He also raised the specter of his own impeachment, something presidents normally do not talk about, and warned that if the Democrats do well, that his impeachment will be something that might become a reality. And that's, again, something presidents don't like to concede, because it leads to the thought, well, they must have something if they're thinking of impeaching you. He does seem to be under more and more strain. You know, when the president praised himself for speaking endlessly without notes, other presidents, even Bill Clinton had notes, Barack Obama, enormously eloquent man, he had notes. The reason you have the notes is not because you can't talk, it's because you value your words so much. And the very fact that Donald Trump is speaking without notes is a sign of trouble.
And we've all seen both Bill Clinton and Barack Obama speak without notes as president and as candidates, and they could do it perfectly coherently. Let's go to the point that David just mentioned, and that is the president of the United States talking about impeachment. He actually says, impeach Trump. That's a little clip of this that will live forever. But the reason most presidents have never discussed impeachment is because no one has ever discussed impeachment about most presidents. So it wasn't just the president not talking about it. No one in the country talked about it for most presidents. But here's Donald Trump. Flew out to Montana tonight to try to help a Senate candidate, talks about the New York Times, talks about his own mental health, and talks about his impeachment.
I don't even bring it up because I view it as something that, you know, but they like to use the impeach word. Impeach Trump. Maxine Waters, we will impeach him. But he didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't matter. We will impeach him. Then what you're going to have is you'll have a country that's going to turn into a third world country. Because if the opposite party becomes president, every time before find out whether or not he or she is going to do a great job, they'll say, we want to impeach him, and you'll impeach him. It's so ridiculous.
Tim O'Brien, so he begins with, I don't even bring it up.
Right.
he brings up impeachment by beginning with the phrase, "I don't even bring it up."
Right, and the president who's governing the country as if he was a third world dictator said that if the opposite party gets into power, we will devolve into a third world country. One of Trump's many poker tells is he will get in front of a crowd and talk about things that he's deeply insecure about, but say he's not insecure. You could do a mashup of him getting on a stage and saying, you know, I'm a really smart guy. I went to Wharton. Okay. You know, I'm a really rich guy. I'm worth $10 billion. Okay. I'm a very attractive guy. Women love me. Okay. Because he's insecure about his appeal, his wealth, and his intellect. And now we can add to that list a president who said, I'm really not going to talk about impeachment, but guess what? Everyone else is talking about impeachment. Or I'm not going to talk about mental health, but tonight I'm going to address that because he realizes these things are in the air and they're being taken seriously, and he's ingested that. It's now part of what he's worried about. And the real danger of a cornered Donald Trump, who's either cornered reputationally or legally, is he will begin lashing out.
And David, from what the president doesn't seem to understand is that the issue of leaking and the issue of loyalty and the issue of fidelity to the purpose of the presidency is something that is decided at the hiring stage. And this is the person who always talked about the best people. I get the best people. I will get the best people. These are the people who he got. These are the people who he wanted. These are the people who, when they have a huddle with him tonight in the Oval Office about their suspect list of 12, at least one of them immediately leaks the discussion in that huddle to the Washington Post.
Look, normally when leaks happen, they happen in administrations where there are very intense conflicts, and the leakers are fighting a battle in front of the president. Epically, the Reagan administration was like this. There were very, very strong differences of opinion on many issues, foreign and domestic, and the combatants would, and the president was very much a hands-off manager, and so the newspapers would fill out with attacks by one senior staffer on another senior staffer, not on the president. What most presidents are good at, you get to be president by being a team builder. I mean, it's a gigantic organization to build a presidential campaign. You have to win votes from millions of people, and you're usually pretty good at winning the loyalties of dozens of people. And so George W. Bush, he had this ability in a small group to make people care about him and make his success their success. I think Barack Obama did the same thing. The Clinton administration was bumpier than that. The Reagan administration was bumpier. But even in the more bumpy administrations, and certainly in the less, the president gains loyalty not just by the way he hires, and not by punishing people, but by inspiring people. And that is clearly the thing that Donald Trump is unable to do, even among his closest intimates, even within the people nearest to him in his room.
And as anyone who's worked for an elected official can tell you, there is nothing that binds the loyalty more strongly than admiration for the elected official that those people are working for. And that apparently is what does not exist in the Trump administration. David Frum, Tim O'Brien, thank you both for joining us tonight. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.